In retirement, I decided I wanted to continue having new adventures, maybe try some activities I hadn't had time for before. So 5 years ago, I undertook unlocking the mystery of the sewing machine and learning how to sew. Well, to start with, I didn't have a sewing machine. I had no idea how to buy one. So my mother was gracious enough to lend me her portable sewing machine. And I carried that right over to the local craft retail store for a Saturday morning Sewing 101, let's make a tote bag. With all the eager anticipation of the first day of school, new classmates and new classroom, new supplies, I followed every instruction the teacher gave, right down to the letter. But something wasn't right. As we tried to sew the seams of our tote bag, my machine jammed. The thread broke. Didn't look like a seam, it looked like a rat's nest. But I pulled it out, rethreaded the machine, and tried again. Alas, it stuck again. It took the assistant instructor 30 minutes to figure out what was wrong, but in the end, everything was made right, and I walked out of class with a tote bag. Now, it was a little lopsided and the handles weren't quite even, but you have to crawl before you can walk. So I signed up for another class. This one was how to make lounge pants with the local recreation adult education division. And 3 Tuesday nights later, I had a pair of pink and purple pastel pajama pants. Now I was off and running. Lounge pants for the neighbor, lounge pants for my nephew, new lining for my winter drapes, and I would hem any pair of pants that someone brought me. After building confidence with small projects, I decided to take on something big. I wanted to redo the seats of my 4 dining room chairs, cushions and all. So I disassembled all 4 chairs. Started with the first one. I picked a piece of fabric from my sewing fabric stash that I really didn't like. It was green and orange and black plaid. I was not going to be sorry to use this as the rough draft, as the test copy for my seat covers. You know, actually, the essence of plaid is right angles, and it turned out that that made it much easier to line up the pieces of fabric and to get the seams straight. So for seats 2 and 3, I kept geometry on my side and picked a gray and white striped cotton. I was bobbing along with cover number 2 when the machine broke. The needle was jamming again, thread was breaking. I had no idea what was wrong. And this was terrible timing. I was less than 3 weeks away from hosting my family for lunch, and I had 3 disassembled chairs and 1 just plain ugly chair. So I called around to my friends to see whom I could borrow a sewing machine from. No way, Cecilia. Not if you're still using that ugly orange plaid. I will not be an accomplice to crimes against home fashion. But otherwise, just come on over, get my machine. Keep it as long as you need to. That's what friends are for. So I finished covers 2 and 3 and just quickly reassembled seat number 4. My family really didn't care about the mismatched seat covers. They were pleased with the progress I was making on my sewing skills and said they were eager to see the final product. In the midst of working on cover number 4, I left town for an extended visit with an elderly aunt. But knowing that she sews and knits, I took project of seat cover number 4 with me. And in the afternoons while she would nap, I worked in her sewing room, first cutting and then sewing the seat together. But I was having a problem. No matter how many pins I put in, the slippery fabric still would not line up correctly, and my seams were just all wrong. Finally, one evening, I showed it to my aunt and sought her counsel. After looking at it for a minute, feed dogs. Celia, you need to adjust the tension on the feed dogs for the slipperiness of the fabric. Well, okay. Adjustments made. I finished cover number 4. And before I left, she actually offered her sewing machine to me. Celia, I'm not doing sewing anymore. You clearly are at the beginning of something great. I want you to have my machine because you would use it. If it stays here, it's just going to languish and wind up in my estate sale. I couldn't take it with me the following week on the airplane, but a few months later, my aunt's sewing machine made its way to my house. And now it lives upstairs in my sewing room. And it warms my heart greatly that every time I sit down to do a sewing project, to know that my beloved aunt is with me along for the great adventure. Thank you.